You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Welcome everybody to episode number 17 of the Battered MLS Fans Podcast. I am your host Daniel Granada, and alongside me, I got four other MLS podcasters. West Coast today. We got some West Coast podcasters, a lot from the Northwest, which we've never had on the show. It should be fun. They said they're enjoying their 30-degree weather, which is I'm actually jealous of, but I don't know how many other people are. So we're gonna go round table. We'll start from the top left, Mr. Sam Rowan from the Third Sub Podcast. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Not too much. Yeah, just staying warm here. And yeah, it's been a fun first round so far. So excited to chat some West Coast MLS action.
Well, I'm sure it was fun. For the Sounders, it was fun also. What's going on, Cameron?
Yeah, not much. Excited that Sounders got a good series going, and excited that I'm going to be here tonight talking to y'all.
There we go. And then I bring it over here from Minnesota, Connor from the Lunacy Podcast. What's going on, Lou?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on, Dan. I'm excited to be here. We're having some good times, some exciting games with Minnesota up, going home for game 2. So,
I'm sure you're loving it right now. And then I'm gonna bring you on, Edgar, just because I have to. But I honestly, I'm not a fan of the jersey. And for Mr. Krabs that was complaining that we were late, it was a Dodgers fan. So what's going on, Edgar? How you doing?
Hey, yo, man. I'm sure you agree with me. This last inning took years off the life
that
of
was
Yankees and Dodgers fans because
Yeah.
you go from like one end of the spectrum to the other, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
It went
that
from
was
like the Yankees dominating to like the Dodgers coming back, and you're like, is this supposed to happen?
well, I will tell you
But
that if the Yankees somehow win today, I'm all of a sudden to get my hopes back up. But that's a different round ball. I guess we'll stick to the football soccer balls. I'm sorry, soccer balls today. And I wanted to get into the playoffs, obviously, and we're gonna talk Western Conference. This is the first round. We're gonna start with Mr. Edgar, though, just because I feel like that's the easiest game because it was the most lopsided game. 5-0 win. Edgar, what did you think of that game? Did you expect to mollywop Colorado in that way? Because honestly, it kind of surprised me.
nah, yeah, actually, the lopsided score was quite a surprise. Even you can ask any Galaxy fan. They were like, there was an expectation to win that game, just because of the fact that you're playing a home game. Colorado's they weren't doing so well coming into the series, and Galaxy I mean the vast majority of the Galaxy players are healthy and ready to go, so everything seemed to be going in our way. And after the first half, everybody was just like, okay, they're up 1-0. This is good. Maybe an insurance goal in the second half would be great. And nobody expected what happened. I mean, I don't care who it is. You could talk to any Galaxy fan. Nobody expected this. It was so bad that at the end of the game, I was like tweeting out like the little meme of like stop, stop. He's already dead. Because
Right.
it was that bad. But in retrospect, it's not unexpected to see Colorado lose. They going into the series, they had lost 4 games in a row. They had lost 5 of their last 6. At this point now, they're lost 6 of their last 7 games. They lost Mihalovic before the series started. That was a huge blow to them.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was a
the
real.
only, yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, they came in, and the big thing going in for them was like, oh, Kevin Cabral's coming back. And our good friend Matt Pollard, who covers the Rapids out there for Holding the Highline podcast, he made light of it, saying this match is the Kevin Cabral, right? Like a brawl. And so I tweeted back like, bring your broken scoreboard and all your Cabrals, we got you. I did not expect I didn't expect the beatdown though.
I mean, that team, shout out to Dan Boniface over at the Denver Gazette, who used to cover the Rapids at the Post. But that team is missing Cole Bassett. That's the heart and soul of their team. I
Yeah.
mean, even though Mihailovic is probably the star, they seem to have just died ever since he's been gone.
Yeah, there's that question right there from Soccer Daddy.
Yeah.
Did Colorado
They
even
had
have a shot
one
on target?
shot. No shots on
None.
target. They had literally just one shot all game. and no
Yeah,
shots.
it was 18-1 shots total, and Cameron was one who he sent me a message in the middle of the game. What was the XG at one point,
It was
Cameron?
it was a negative XG, which I've never seen before. It was weird. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it ended
Yeah.
at 0.03, which I've never seen it that low before.
Yeah.
Nah, that's like having like a negative batting average or something. It's like,
Yeah, that's what it is, babe. Essentially, yeah.
I mean,
I know about
so
that.
yeah, I mean,
I'm
I'm laughing about it right now, but it was pretty ugly to watch. Like after the fourth goal, I think Galaxy fans were were pretty happy. We're like, yeah, we're happy, and then here comes the fifth, right? And you're like, damn, okay, you got to beat
Save
these
some
poor
for next
kids
game?
down. Pardon me?
You at any point do you think save some for next game?
Yeah, no, we were joking about that after the game. We're like, man, they should have saved some of those goals for the next game, because um, the truth is, Galaxy has a really hard time playing up in Commerce City, Denver. In fact, they did win their last game there, which was on October 3rd, I think. Yeah, October 3rd. But I'm sorry, I'm looking at the last result. Um, yeah, October 3rd. Yeah, sorry, October 3rd, Galaxy won up there. But overall, Galaxy have only won twice in their last 7 games up there. And this is dating back to like 2017, and before then it gets even uglier. Colorado all time at home have a 23-17 win record over Galaxy with 7 draws between them. So playing up there is always a challenge, whether it's the altitude, whether it's cold weather, which I think is going to be somewhere like in the 50s, so it's not too bad. So it's just something that Colorado can hope, hang on for some hope on there. They could scrap together maybe a 1-0 victory and then bring it back to LA.
We
I
had
don't know what you
Mitchell
guys
on-
feel. I'll give you my final thought on this, because I'll share
for it.
something that Matt Pollard told me. What do you guys think? Do you think this series is over?
Well, Mitchell from the All City Network last week joined us from Denver, and he said that his hope was to get one in Colorado because they have a success against the Galaxy in Colorado, and then figure out how to steal one at some point, whether it be game 1 or game 3. Game 3 now. So, I mean, Colorado fans, I mean, maybe after seeing that 5-0, maybe it's not anymore, but at some point they had some hope. Connor, should Colorado
Yes.
have any hope, or is this over?
Well, no team has it easy going to Colorado and playing over there. I can say that with experience from my Loons. They have a tough time getting the win down in Colorado. But it's tough to call because Galaxy are pretty hot right now. Coming off a 5-0 win, that ain't no small task. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I personally, I'm predicting an LA Galaxy win myself. I think I'm going to predict a 2-1 win. I think Colorado's going to get a goal at home, but Galaxy are just too talented, in my opinion.
I was looking back last year to see how many of the series went 3 games, and only 3 of the 8 series last year went 3 games. So it's not something that I guess normally happens. The better team usually just ends it in the first 2, unless you're saying Louis, because they just, I don't know what the hell that was going on there. I don't know how they did it last year. Cameron,
Yeah.
LA Galaxy, are they a shoe-in?
I think it's a tough place to play. Seattle is the same problem there. I mean, I think we've won our last few, but historically we've been pretty poor there. And I don't know why it doesn't get talked about in the MLS, because it does in the NFL. Being a mile high, I mean, it takes you a while to catch your breath. So you're running around that first half just trying to breathe before you can figure anything out.
Yep.
I think, and excuse the pronunciation of his name, Edgar will have to help me on this one, but I think it may come down to what is it, Jovelich?
Jovelich.
Jovelich.
He actually came out at the start of the season and said, people have been mispronouncing my name. It's not Jovelich, it's Jovelich. And everybody's like, oh,
Yeah. So how he does, because to me, he's kind of the heart and soul of that Galaxy team. There's so many great players, but when he's on, you're not stopping them. And so, yeah, I mean, I could see Colorado stealing one. Their fans are down on them right now, though. Everyone was at like a watch party for that last match, and just destroyed after what happened, and they think without Cole Bassett, there's not much of a chance. So I think LA wins the series. I think Colorado, like I'll go with the 1-0. If they can pull off a 1-0 win, they gotta not allow LA Galaxy to score, which we know is hard.
Yeah, no, that Galaxy attack is something else. And Sam, I guess we'll finish it off with you as far as the Galaxy go. Any hope for Colorado?
Yeah, so when I think about this, I put myself in like the mentality that the Whitecaps were in, because coming down towards the playoffs, it was inevitably kind of LAFC or LA Galaxy. And so you think about, like, hypothetically, if the Whitecaps were to have played the Galaxy, what would they be looking for? I think it was kind of similar to Colorado, where
Right.
yeah, you're hoping you can get one of those first two matches. So obviously the 5-0 score line, the players they're missing, that's not helpful. But at the same time, you're in the same place as losing 2-1 in the first match, right? So my sense of the Galaxy is that when everything's clicking and they're going at full speed, you're not stopping them. What you're hoping is that you get a day when the Galaxy are not at their best, and then you can take advantage, right? The problem now is without Mihailovic, without Bassett, do the Rapids have those players to actually take advantage if the Galaxy happen to be off their game, happen to struggle at Mile High? I feel like they just might not have the tools to actually take advantage of that. Are the Galaxy even going to offer that opportunity? It seems very unlikely. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my thought on, if you're going to try to knock off the Galaxy who've been so good this year, you'd kind of need the tools to take advantage of those weak moments. And it doesn't feel like Colorado has that, unfortunately.
It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I wanted to share something real quick as we cap up with the Galaxy in Colorado series. Like I said, Matt Pollard, as a friend of our show, we talked to him a lot. He was texting me during the game, and so he said at one point that, let me share it with you real quick, because I asked him, what's going on at the half. He says the fan base is really pissed off with the Rapids media chat. He's like, everybody's just really mad at each other. So after the game, I mean, obviously this was at the half, right? After the game, which is, at that point, it's just, it's dead and buried. I asked him, so what's the mood now? He says the fan base will be fully preparing for a funeral on Friday.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hope. And here I got Florida man saying Sam looks like Tim Tebow. I kind of see it. I kind of see it. Yeah. I was watching the Florida documentary on Netflix. I'm on episode, I think, like 3. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good documentary if nobody's watched it. I'm not a Florida fan, but it's interesting when you know the backstory that team had, all the personalities.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I shout out Mr. Krabs real quick, who asked, how did Colorado even make the playoffs? I think they were in third place, maybe 2 points out of second before they lost their Final Four. They were going to be at the top of the bracket and fell apart.
If the season would have gone another 2 or 3 weeks, they might not have made the playoffs.
Yeah, at one point, I remember
crazy at the end with ups and downs. There was so many teams on runs and so many teams that really fell off near the end.
All I saw in Colorado, I felt like we're falling just randomly.
Yeah, I was gonna say at one point, I remember right before Galaxy faced them at one point, they were legitimately within firing distance of the top spot of the West. And then Galaxy came in and crushed them. And after that, they lost another home game. And then the wheels completely fell off. And it wasn't the same after that. And, then you have injuries. And
I remember.
Go on.
I was going to say, I remember because you guys were talking about the West and how much it fluctuated. I remember, I want to say it was the beginning of September or end of August on this show. I said, you know what? One of my dark horses for the playoffs is going to be Seattle. Because at that point, they were like towards the bottom of the standings. And then when we did our preview show like 2 weeks ago before the playoffs, I mentioned Seattle. And they're like, why would you say Seattle? They're the 3rd seed. And I was like, holy crap. They really did climb up that high. Because
2.5 points a game on average over the second half of the season. Yeah,
it was wild.
It's not the first time we've done that.
I know historically, that's what Seattle does, and they turn it on at this time of year. But before we get to Seattle, I wanted to get to Sam. Vancouver, LAFC. Let's finish off with the LA teams. LAFC, Vancouver, 2-1. obviously somebody said it earlier. PK was it? Somebody said, there we go. PK Merchants, LAFC. Boagna, of course, half of his goals come from the spot. You kind of expect it already. How do you feel about that game? Was it on Sunday or Saturday? I forgot already.
Yeah, so it was on Sunday.
Sunday, okay.
So it's been a weird roller coaster for the Whitecaps recently. So we're talking about teams going up and down, and Whitecaps' worst run of form in the last 2.5, 3 seasons running into the playoffs. Lost 4 in a row, like outright. Only picked up a couple points in their last 7. Like all of a sudden, normally the Vancouver has been a team that's finished reasonably strong. Absolutely terrible run of form. They go to the wild card. They blow out the Timbers 5-0. All of a sudden, all the Whitecaps' best players are back. I think something that was a theme late in the year was perhaps no teams hit harder by international absences at the moment, 6, 7 starters being away, so that kind of hurt. Finally, everyone got back and fit for Portland. It was obviously a huge day. And then you have to go very quickly and face LAFC, a team the Whitecaps have seen far too much of the last 3 years. CONCACAF champions, Champions Cup now, I guess it's called, Leagues Cup. It's been in playoffs last year over and over and over again. Can they get past LAFC? You also have Mark DeSantos, former Whitecaps manager, assistant manager with LAFC. So there's a lot of history there. And I think the opening match of the first round, it went pretty well. Like a lot of, in terms of, the overall play from box to box, I think the Whitecaps gave a good account of themselves. The penalty, it's one of those ones that's harsh, but at the same time, I don't know if there have been a lot of LAFC penalty merchant calls this year. I don't know if this one was like particularly egregious. I think it just, based on the reputation, it's easy to say that. I didn't have a huge problem with it. It's unfortunate, but it's one of these things that happens. I think for the Whitecaps, you look at inside the first 10 minutes, Stuart Armstrong plays a ball to Brian White. Brian White's in alone on goal. It hits the inside of the post. It doesn't go in. Moments like that end up being the difference between potentially being able to grab a result on the road and missing out. LAFC is good enough where if you don't capitalize on those chances, it's going to be a struggle. So
for sure.
Kind of like the Galaxy Rapids matchup, in the sense that I think Vancouver's plan was always see if we can get something in the first game, but defend our home pitch, win at home, see if you can take it to 3, figure out what you can do from there. But I think in terms of with everyone, Stuart Armstrong, Ryan Gauld, Brian White, Fafa Pico, that core group all being fit and healthy, this is the best possible chance the Whitecaps have had of knocking off LAFC. So in general, I think the way the season ended, that people are positive and just kind of hoping for a good result on Sunday. But it feels a bit like found money, to be honest, because things were really coming off the rails. So certainly if they can get a win and push it to 3, I think that people in Vancouver will be reasonably happy.
Sam, can I ask you a question about that? I was up there, I think, second last game of the season when Seattle came up and won 3-0. We were able to get tickets right behind the goal for $23. The stadium was super empty. It seemed like a lot of people were angry about what went on with the Messi tickets, stuff like that. Do you think people are going to show up for the playoff match?
Yeah, so it's been funny this year. It's been like very up and down. The Whitecaps do average like one of the higher attendances in MLS. I mean, it is a bigger building. And actually, honestly, this season, I mean, I've been going covering the matches since 2017, and then I went like as a supporter before that. These have been some of the better turnouts. I think that in terms of supporters culture, it's definitely in a bit of a transition phase. Like a lot of the core supporters that dated back to USL days, they're older now. They're maybe not like as hard into that supporters culture anymore, and they're bringing in a lot of new fans. So I think that part of the fan base is in transition, but overall attendance numbers have been decent. I think that one thing that's been an impact, and I know the Whitecaps have really pushed hard for this, is Vancouver, the greater Vancouver area, is a big place. There's lots of traffic. There's also lots of other things going on in Vancouver. Having matches like afternoon on weekends is way better in terms of getting families out, coming from an hour and a half away, stuff like that.
It was a weeknight game, so
If matches are Wednesday at 7:30, good luck. Like you eliminate 50% of the fan base, honestly.
I think that's in most places though, unless you live in a very like main metro area where the stadium's like right there in downtown. But I can't think of many stadiums in the MLS that are that way.
I mean, that's what we have in Seattle, but still, you play
Seattle,
we're not
Seattle, Charlotte is another one that's like that. Atlanta, maybe.
So you could do 4:30 on a Saturday or Sunday, and there's going to be 24,000 out. But it just, it does come down to some stuff like that sometimes.
Yeah. It's also, I was going to say, it's going to be harder to draw fans right now also because NHL season kicked up and the Canucks play like literally right next door.
Exactly. Yeah. No, definitely has an impact, and it's why.
Well,
I mean, Vancouver are really annoyed about Leagues Cup because it takes away this prime window in the middle of summer where there's no competition, and you're doing this silly competition no one understands or cares about instead of playing meaningful MLS matches.
And people are talking about changing the calendar. I don't understand why they. Well, that's a story for another day. Which, by the way,
those in the north, we're like, no.
Well, you know what? We'll end with that conversation because I want to have a full show on that because I'll never understand that. Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to share some stats because some people were asking me this week about the series, and I have some stats on like the series, and people were asking me, hey, does the Caps have a chance at home against LAFC? And I was like, well, let me look at this. All time at BC Place, LAFC and Vancouver have 4 wins with 1 draw. But the last time that Vancouver beat LAFC at home was more than 2 years ago. So it's going to be a tough
uphill
situation
battle
for the Caps.
Yeah. Whitecaps have actually had weirdly a bit more success going to LA and playing like very defensive counterattacking football recently. Just kind of bunkering in, surrendering a lot of possession and then trying to capitalize. So it's been a struggle for Vancouver all year. They almost they don't know how to be assertive and take control of the match. They almost like it better on the road where the other team dictates and then they get to respond. So I think that's an interesting balance for this weekend is what does Vancouver do? Do they try to take the initiative or do they just kind of absorb LAFC's pressure and then respond to it?
Mr. Krabs, we're going to get to that question at the end because I am interested, especially with the Northwestern guest. Connor, before we get to Minnesota, LAFC, any chance that they don't win against the Caps on Saturday, is it, Sam, or Sunday that they're playing?
Sunday.
It would be Sunday, yes.
Yeah.
So, Vancouver, they have some good attacking options. I think Brian White is a great striker. I think he's very underappreciated. I just think LAFC with Olivier Giroud on their side and Hugo Lloris in goal, Denny Bouanga in the form that he's in. I think that LAFC is going to go up there and get another one. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close just like this one, but I think they're going to go up there and get another win.
I think Giroud might be the worst signing of the season. I think
it's possible.
I think I don't know what they would. It's kind of like what Real Madrid did with Mbappe. Like there was no need for him. I don't know what they brought him over for. The play style doesn't fit him. They're gonna have to redo that roster because he needs service into the box, crosses. And I know we're not gonna get into the details, but that was a horrible signing.
Well, you still gotta acknowledge that Giroud's got a ton of talent, and this is playoff soccer we're talking about here. So I think
just one moment. Just one moment, yeah.
Summer DPs don't make a large impact.
Because think about what Gareth Bale did a couple of years ago. I don't think he did much for LAFC a couple of years ago.
He salvaged his signing with that late goal in the Champions League game.
I was going to share some scuttlebutt with you guys because talking to some of the LAFC pods out here, maybe you guys have heard it, or maybe I've shared it before, was that the signing of Olivier Giroud and also the signing of Carlos Vela, bringing him back, is all to butter up Antoine Griezmann because it's like almost 100% shoo-in that he's going to be there next season.
Well, I didn't know until Eric from LAFC, we had him on, and I wasn't aware. Maybe you guys are aware. Again, in the East Coast, we're unaware of a lot of things that happen out on the West Coast. I didn't know that Vela and Griezmann were such close friends, but apparently
They played
they're
together
really-
at Atletico Madrid. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're supposedly really close friends. So that's why they brought Vela back so he could model with trophies that he had no business being a part of because he didn't play, and to bring over Griezmann, which is wild to me. So, hey Edgar, by the way, did you know that they call you guys Carson?
Yeah, we're aware of that.
I had no idea. The more look, when I started doing this podcast, it's been awesome because I've learned so much more about the MLS on across, especially the West Coast. It's pretty cool. So
I could say so much because I grew up in the neighborhood where LAFC Stadium is located, and the street where the stadium is located, the Figueroa Avenue, whatever Boulevard, is known as the Figueroa Corridor, and it's infamous for always being populated by streetwalkers. I was gonna say.
Yeah. Okay.
That area of LA is so notorious now that USC has like a 12-foot barbed wire fence with like spikes on it facing that area of the.
That's how most stadiums get built, though. That's the cheapest land, so that's where they build a lot of the stadiums.
I mean, I remember like when I was a kid, I used to go games because it's next to the LA Coliseum, so I would always go catch international matches there, and it wasn't so bad walking around. But nowadays, you go walking around, good luck.
Or they
Well,
steal the
that's-
land from poor Latinos like the Dodgers did.
What's that?
I was talking about the history of Chavez Ravine. That's all.
Oh, that was the city of LA who did that, not the Dodgers.
No, yes, of course.
Right. Yeah. Was that the same area in the LAFC was in that Chivas USA used to be in back in the day?
No, Chivas USA used to pay rent at the Dignity Health Sports Park, which was
Oh,
the
they did.
Hub Center back.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of Galaxy fans always point out, like, hey, your fan base was born in Carson, so I don't know why you guys are always saying Carson this, Carson that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's been fun. Like I said, the more you know, I've had a lot of fun getting to grow my West Coast MLS knowledge over.
But Edgar,
this.
are there LA Galaxy fans that jump ship? They aren't all Chivas USA fans. Did they see a shiny new thing and jump over there? Is that
Yeah, a lot of them actually did. I would say that the core fan base of them are like Chivas USA fans who, even back then, way back then, you ask them, like, and I knew some of them was like, why are you a Chivas USA fan? That's such a niche group, right? Because it's not like the ownership group was like, hey, let's try to get the Mexican American community here. That would mean including like other Liga MX fans. No, they drilled down with Chivas, right? And so, well, that fan base, you ask them, why are you guys Chivas USA fans? When you have El Galaxy, such a successful team. Well, we hate them. Like, well, why do you hate them? We just do. It's like, okay, fine. Your fan base, your fandom is based on hate. All these years went by, and the team eventually got put out of. I mean, I'll say it. Galaxy beat them into extinction. They like literally eliminated them, but because Don Garber, that was one of his first pet projects, did not want to see his project, go to waste. He gave them pretty much a Phoenix down, and they came back. They got like 72 owners now. They went out with a little, a hat asking for money around, Hollywood. They finally got a bunch of people to come in. They gave them the old land where the Clippers used to play, and the old LA Memorial Coliseum, sports arena. And just something symbolic though. There was a City of LA flag that used to fly right above the sports arena. When that building got torn down, they just left it there. A bunch of Galaxy fans found it, they cleaned it, and now we have it at the stadium.
Oh,
That is awesome.
that is interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yep.
Here's hoping to El Tráfico in the Western Conference Finals, even though I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would be a must-watch TV, but I don't think it's happening. Now, I want to go over to Connor here. Minnesota, you're probably the happiest of all the road teams, right?
I am. It certainly doesn't suck to be a Loons fan right now. That's for sure. It's awesome. It's actually a fun fact about last night's win is that it's Minnesota's first ever win in penalty shootout in the playoffs ever.
Oh, now and it was a stressful one, right? Because one team misses one, and then the other team misses one right after. So it's one of those ass clinchers.
One of those things where I just couldn't sit down. I was pacing around my living room the entire time watching that game. Minnesota usually has a pretty good record when it comes to penalty shootouts, though. So I had a little bit of hope going, but being a Minnesota sports fan myself as well, having hope means doom for Minnesota sports. So it's not a great look, but this time we came out on top, and now we're heading back home, hoping to clinch advancement, and right here in St. Paul.
Is it feel good not having Adrian Heath there that you know that you actually have a chance to win?
Absolutely, yes. All Minnesota fans are happy to have Eric Ramsey on at the helm. We loved the gaffer back in the day when he was doing his 3-year plan, and he took us to the Western Conference Final. Did some great things with Minnesota, but it was far beyond time to move on. And Eric Ramsey has more than stepped into the spotlight here, and he's been great. We love him over here.
Cameron, do you think that Minnesota ended at home on? I keep forgetting what days. There's so many games jumbled up this weekend.
I mean, the way Minnesota has changed the way they play is so impressive. They are a completely different team from the way they started the season. They were a team that, frankly, the Sounders have owned for quite some time. Now I'm afraid.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, but I'm afraid to play now, right? Like, because that's not the team we're seeing.
Right.
I think they can, but you can never count out RSL. Here's the thing: RSL is it's not called Rio Tinto. What is it now? America First or something like that.
America First Field.
Very, very difficult place to play. So I think this is Minnesota's best chance to do it. And in front of the Wonderwall, I think that's the way to get it done. Don't let it go to penalties. Get out there and win it in regulation. And I mean, between Robin Lod, is that how you say it?
It's Lod, yeah.
And some of those guys up top. I mean, Minnesota has a lot of talent, and Ramsey's figured out how to make it successful.
Yeah, last five games between Minnesota and RSL have been draws. Yeah, and so it's kind of meeting the pattern here, but Minnesota kind of has 5 wins and RSL has 3 wins in their history, but at home, I think I'm hopeful. I know that's dangerous.
I mean, you could never count out Arango and Luna, right? Because they could have their moment of brilliance. But
absolutely.
But the 5 draws, I wasn't aware that the last 5 were draws. That's wild.
That's right. And Chicho, you mentioned Chicho Arango. He hasn't really been the same since he came back from injury. So I think that has counted against.
What about that All-Star game suspension? What the hell was that?
Yep. I mean, I honestly don't know much about that one, but I don't know, man. Like I remember seeing Chicho Arango play against us, and I was at the game in April when RSL were up here in Minnesota, and that ended up a 1-1 draw. But man, and Chicho Arango looked good that game. He was the guy that we were afraid of, but then he just hasn't looked the same in the latter half of the season.
Yeah, before his suspension, and what I was referring to with the All-Star game is that they suspended him for 3 or 4 games, but one of those games was the All-Star game, which made no sense to me. But ever since that, because the first half of the season, people were even putting his name out there, MVP conversations, and then he completely fell off. So I'm not sure what happened after that suspension, but I agree with you. He completely fell off. But Diego Luna would probably, if not Diego Gomez, Diego Luna would probably win Young Player of the Year. They have the firepower. Sam, any chance that Minnesota finishes off RSL this weekend?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess I have a question for Connor, which is, what do you attribute the shift in terms of all of a sudden becoming this defensive powerhouse? Because I feel like in the past, obviously, Dane St. Clair is someone that, us up in Canada, we're watching closely. It seems like in the past, St. Clair has been, trying to do everything to scramble in front, behind a shambolic defense. And now all of a sudden we saw Minnesota come to BC Place not too long ago, and they just look like a completely different team. Is it just Ramsey's tactics? Is it something they're doing
in the back?
What's been the biggest change in your mind?
I think it is Eric Ramsey, as you said, Sam. His tactics coming into the team this year, because with Adrian Heath, Adrian Heath was too kind of hung up on his old guard back in the defense. I think he had his favorite players that he wanted to play in the back line, and it didn't work out very well. And one thing also that the old Minnesota would do is, if they were ahead, maybe with about 20 minutes to go, they would park the bus. They would just kind of wait for the other team to to attack, and that would rarely work out for us. It just didn't work, especially against you guys, Seattle. But it's with Ramsey, they keep the pressure on. It's not very often they they park the bus, and they just kind of keep the press high, and that just finding the right combination of players to play in the back line has been awesome. You still got the leadership of Michael Boxall at the back, but then you have young guys like Devin Padelford, and he's been one of the unsung heroes this season. And then you switch up, and then the last thing is you switch up the back line quite a bit. Like you even see players like Bangi Langwane back in the back line. You see Sang Jong back in the back line, which is something you wouldn't really expect, but it's worked out. So keeping that kind of mystery in the back line, I think, has worked out.
And Dave here in the comments was saying that he hopes to see Yeboah break out. That's the one.
Oh, hey Dave.
That's one of the things that I love about the playoffs. I was having a debate just on our Inter Miami show an hour ago, and I was debating with someone because they said that they hate the playoffs. One of the reasons I love the playoffs is because it kind of highlights a specific game, standalone, and this is where you start to meet these Yeboah. If he has let's say he has a brace on Sunday or Saturday, whenever the game is this weekend, people on the East Coast, and I'm talking about East Coast because like I was telling you guys earlier, we don't really watch too much West Coast outside of the playoffs. We start recognizing these names more often, and if it's not for the playoffs, it doesn't happen as often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeboah though,
Yeboah has been a godsend. He's been if he had come in at the beginning of the season, I think he would be up for the newcomer of the year. Yeah, for sure.
And Cameron, how are we feeling about the Loonies, Minnesota taking it?
I think they can do it. I mean, I think
okay.
Like I was saying, you got to worry about RSL at home, but they have the chance to put them away right now. And I've always been impressed by the team. I've always liked. I appear often on a different Loons podcast, but I am a moderate fan of the team, mainly because they had Ozzy Alonso, who came over.
That's right. We loved Ozzy over here.
But I think they have the team to do it. They're in a completely new team that no one knows what to do with. I mean, it's kind of like what Nancy has done first in Montreal and now Columbus, where they're changing the way the teams in the MLS are playing.
Yeah. All right, and I guess we'll move over to the Sounders now. Sounders, Houston. I'm sorry. Did I not get to you, Edgar? My fault.
That was good,
It's
Edgar.
the Dodgers. It's the Dodgers jersey. I'm sorry.
I'm just patiently waiting. You were here. Yeah, like Galaxy fans are watching the RSL Minnesota series intently, obviously, because if Galaxy moves on, that one of those two teams is going to be the next one we're going to face. And once again, people were asking me, like, hey, who do you think's going to win? And I was like, that's a good question. I think I said that RSL absolutely needed to win that first game, because all time they've only beaten Minnesota United 3 times. It's really strange. And like all time they played each other, RSL has a losing record against Minnesota, and they've only ever beaten the Loons at St. Paul once, and that was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a golden opportunity, and I think Minnesota is going to finish them off and leave RSL like wondering what the heck happened, because at one point they saw it as like a golden season as a return to greatness. But I think that the Loons, you want to talk dark horse? The Loons have been coming up quietly, stealthily, with nobody paying attention. Everybody's looking at Seattle. People are looking at Colorado. Are they going to stay in there? No, they're falling apart. Meanwhile, Minnesota's quietly creeping up, right? And there they are right now, like a shadow.
Edgar, I have a quick question for you before we get to Cameron with Seattle. I was talking to Eric from LAFC last week, and I told him that they won the West technically, but I felt like they got the short end of the stick, because no disrespect to Minnesota or RSL, but I think I'd rather play against Minnesota or RSL in the second round than I would against Seattle or Houston with their defenses. Do you think you ended up in a better situation not getting that first seed?
Yeah, no disrespect to the teams in our bracket. Yeah, obviously, a lot of Galaxy fans were really upset at just uh, missing that opportunity to take top of the West because seeing this team from what it's come, from a year ago to where it is now, it would have put a bow tie on the season.
Right.
But then you wake up the following day and you're like, hey, you know what? That wasn't so bad after all. I mean, like the teams on this side of the bracket are teams that Galaxy does well against. Galaxy has always had problems with Seattle. They've had issues with Houston.
Everybody.
And Vancouver's manageable, but we were worried that maybe Portland might, creep in there. And of course, there's LAFC. So we looked at it and we're like, man, LAFC, they got a pretty rough road to get to MLS Cup. Because I was looking at the records, and a lot of people think that Seattle's tough against LAFC. They're not. LAFC has dominated that series. People are thinking, well, what about Vancouver? No, we already spoke about that one. But then the one team that always strikes fear in the heart of LA fans, whether it's LAFC or LA Galaxy, it's Houston.
Houston.
Yeah, Houston plays both teams really well, and so we're looking at that series too. We're like, wow, can Houston overcome Seattle? Because if they do, we think that they're going to have a better shot of beating LAFC. Meanwhile, on our side of the things, we're like, whew, man, we dodged all these bullets, but like I said, Minnesota's creeping up in there, right? We can't sleep on the loons. And next thing you're gonna hear some flapping, and you turn around, the last thing you hear is woo woo, and you're dead. So
Yeah, I know what you mean, Edgar. Like the thing is about Minnesota with the playoffs is the one thing we were hoping going into the postseason on decision day. We were just hoping that we wouldn't play the Seattle Sounders. They have been our kryptonite ever since we came into the league, and I think we've only beaten them once. So we were very happy to get RSL instead of Seattle.
We dropped points and let RSL jump us. So
Yep.
it put us in the LAFC bracket, which we did not want because they beat us 4 times already this year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Seattle was my dark horse, and that's who I thought would make it. I felt like Seattle would be the one that would end up in the Western Conference Finals against LAFC. I thought they would beat the Galaxy on the way, but then things kind of went haywire decision day, and we're here now. But Seattle, Houston, I thought it was the most intriguing of all the Western Conference series. Just like in the East Coast, it's Charlotte and Orlando. In the West Coast, to me, it was Seattle, Houston. Cameron, how do you feel about that first game and how it went? I mean, I'm sure you're happy, but
yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the result. I'm not happy with the game.
Okay.
That was a very rough game. Seattle for I think the second straight home game, including decision day against Portland, couldn't score, and that's been a tale of the season where we're only winning 1-0, 2-0. We're not scoring a lot of goals down the stretch here, and we have the best defense in the MLS by the numbers.
But Houston's not far behind.
That's true. With Jackson Reagan up for Defender of the Year, young player, third year with the Sounders. It was De La Vega, who was our DP, who's been hurt most of the year and now coming back and been getting better every game. It was his worst game we've seen all season. And Jordan Morris may be out. He's definitely doubtful for this weekend. They haven't finished the MRIs yet. I think those come back this Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But you're going to lose the guy who's played number 9 the whole season. Gives Raul Ruidiaz to come in a chance, who's last season in Seattle legend, not coming back. So it'll give him a chance to do some damage. But I was worried for not going into the game because I'm looking at the numbers right here. Seattle is 14-0-3 all time in Seattle against Houston.
Oh wow!
So
Wow.
Houston's never won in Seattle. I think 19-6-8 overall, which means 5. Houston has 5 wins, 6 draws, and 5 losses in Houston. Houston's always tough for Seattle in the summer. Thankfully, the weather's not that hot. If the Sounders can score, they can beat anybody because their defense doesn't let in a lot of goals. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do. I think the one big thing that got me during the game is I was hoping they would save a sub to sub off Stephen Fry and put in our backup, who has been saving saves left and right. Andrew Thomas even scored a penalty kick in the U.S. Open Cup, because Stephen Fry has 5 saves all time on penalties out of a total of 55 shots. In the last 8 years, he has 2 saves over 23, and he didn't make a save. I will say, I watched the replay. He probably makes that save on the one that missed, but we'll never know. So he is not going to win a game by saving a penalty anymore, like he started out with the sound. In 2016, when we won the MLS Cup in Toronto, he made a save there. But it's if we go to penalties, I'm afraid. So I think Seattle has to step up. If they lose in Houston, I'm confident we'll win at home, just because we've never lost to them at home. But this is a tough matchup, and it's frustrating, because if we win, it's gonna be 1-0, and it means I'm gonna sit there freaking out the entire time.
You
Just to
figured
put
that
things
though,
into perspective for you guys.
Go ahead.
Houston has only beaten Seattle once in the last 16 matches, and there's only been 1 draw before last night's.
Yeah.
So,
So not just in Seattle, it's the entire.
What are you guys doing that we're not doing?
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, here's the thing, but it's like LA Galaxy used to dominate Seattle back in the day too. It's all cyclical, right? It'll come back.
Those games were scrappy. I mean, I'm looking at the scores here. I was like, God, Seattle, what are you guys doing?
You guys have played them. You played them 14 times in Houston.
Yeah.
You've won half of those.
Yeah.
But they've won 5. So like you said, the success for them obviously comes at home.
But
So
they're all summer games, I believe, and they're all early on, because when you're playing in Houston and 90 degrees with 100% humidity, you're not winning.
Right.
Yeah, it's like playing in Colorado.
I think losing Jordan Morris is going to be the tough one. If he's definitely doubtful for game 2. He hasn't scored for a while, but he did have 4 straight games with a goal near the end of the season. But I think it's been 4 or 5 games since then, and you got to figure out where the goals are going to come from. It's been coming from youth, and so if they get those, Sounders will be fine. Otherwise, we're coming back the following Sunday to play in Seattle.
I think that series might go 3. That's one of those, even like Orlando Charlotte might go 3 also. I think those are fun series to watch. Connor, Seattle, you guys seem to have a brother in there in Cameron. How are you feeling about Seattle?
Seattle's definitely a good team. They've really sprouted up over the last half of the season, and it's a team that Minnesota has, as I say, has always been afraid of. But also, then again, Houston, Houston always has a way of getting into that dark horse position. I feel like they're always one that is never really an outright team that you're going to expect to win a playoff game or series, but they're always a dark horse. So if you're going down to Houston, oh boy, this one's tough. I think Seattle takes the series.
Look at Justin. Justin makes a really good point there.
Yeah. Karaskija got that red card.
Yeah, and I imagine he's missing the
that's true.
series. You punch somebody in the face, you don't typically get banned.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think Seattle takes the series, but I think Houston wins at home.
I felt the same. I forgot about Karaskija getting that red card though, but yes, I think that it might go 3 also. I think it deserves 3. Sam, how do you feel about the series?
Yeah, this one's, I think envious of both defensive units on these teams. And, Seattle yes, they've struggled to score at times, but such a consistent starting 11 for the most part. So much continuity throughout the squad. Schmetzer continues to be one of the best managers in MLS. So I think I like all of that. Paul Rothrock near the end of the year, was hot against the Whitecaps and scored a bunch of goals. So, if he can find a way to contribute, get back on the score sheet, I think overall I like Seattle. For me, you look at that Houston lineup and Artur and Hector Herrera is that double pivot. That's fantastic. But then further up the pitch, Carrasquilla, you see this from him where he loses his mind, gets into these kinds of moments. Amine Bassi, I think some of those guys up front aren't reliable in crucial moments. And as much as Seattle does struggle to score at times, I think on the balance, I definitely favor The Sounders, it's a question of whether or not they can get the job done in Houston, or if it takes 3 matches.
So you're taking Frey over Steve Clark?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely Steve Clark has not endeared himself to Vancouver supporters over the years, so that's an easy one.
He's a Portland product, so we all. I don't know if he's a product, but he played there, so we all hate him.
Yeah,
there you go.
Same here.
The whole Northwest.
That's why we love Vancouver right now. Beating Portland 5-0 at home was just. I mean, I've already won the championship. I don't even need to see what the Sounders do the rest of the way.
I like that. All right, and Edgar, are you jumping in on the fuck Steve Clark?
Oh man, no. I'm staying nice and positive.
Okay. All right. So, how are you feeling about the Seattle Houston series?
I think it's gonna go all the way. I think Houston's gonna scrap together to steal one at home, but that just the dominance Seattle has over them, you can't overlook that. I think Seattle will finish them off at home, but at least Houston can make things a little bit interesting. But yeah, losing Carrasquilla is not gonna help them at all.
No, I agree. I think that is going to be a big detriment to them. But I think the consensus was outside of, I think, Cameron, you said, I think you said that you could possibly finish it this weekend.
I think we could, depending on if we can score, but I'm more likely seeing us coming home.
Yeah, I think everybody, the consensus was Seattle will win, whether it be this weekend or next. It's Seattle. Minnesota, everybody has hopes for them. LAFC, we feel like that's going to go LAFC's route, and the Galaxy is going to take care of business. I mean, maybe Colorado somehow with the altitude gets something. Just real quick, around the horn. Connor, chances we see El Tráfico in the Western Conference Finals. Do you think it's happening or no?
Ooh, that would be amazing if it did.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think it's happening in the conference finals yet, right? It always ends up happening in the semifinal.
The only way that's not happening is if LAFC loses in the conference semifinals. I think LAFC takes their series, but then if the only team that can beat them is probably Seattle or Houston. They have a decent chance. I think LA Galaxy are gonna head all the way there. I think whoever wins RSL and Minnesota are not gonna stand a chance against the Galaxy, especially not in a 1-game elimination in LA
scenario. Right. I'm with you. I think the Galaxy are there. I think it's LAFC that might get tripped up in the second round. Sam, what do you think? Tráfico, yes or no?
I'm gonna say no. I can't believe I'm gonna say this because it's a Cascadian rival, but I think we're gonna see Seattle and the LA Galaxy in the final. I feel like it's time to bump the slump in Seattle, and I think defending in a 1-match single elimination.
That's the scariest team to play, as always.
Being cagey and just taking it as far as you need to. I feel like that's the route to knocking off LAFC, and yeah, I can't see the Galaxy. Either of those teams. RSL maybe earlier in the year when Chicho was firing, but the way they're looking right now, it feels like Galaxy for sure, and then it's kind of down to LAFC and Seattle realistically.
And Jeremy's asking if that would be good for growing the league because it's all one city. I could see where Jeremy's coming from, but because it's the two big names in the West Coast, I think it would be good for growing the city. Now, if it were, I don't know, Seattle, Portland, I think that maybe not, right? That the Northwest
would lose. They beat us in the playoff every time.
but I think because it's the two big names, I think it would be good for the league. But I don't think it's happening. Cameron, you think we're going to get El Tráfico in the Western Conference Finals?
I'm going to say no for 2 reasons. One, of course, Vancouver is going to come back and beat LAFC, and we're going to get that Cascadia semifinal. But no, I mean, here's the thing is Seattle has lost to LAFC 4 times this season and then last year in the playoffs. But we finally figured it out in the U.S. Open Cup, which was our last loss, and we kept our left back, who loves to push forward, keep him back, kept the solid defense, and that game came down to a handball in the box that was you couldn't really tell one way or another. Right. Calls weren't going both ways. It's what happened, though. But it's hard to beat a team twice in a season. I can't see LAFC winning 4 times. Seattle knows how to beat them. It's all about execution, and it would be difficult if they don't show up again like they haven't some of these other games. So I think I'm going Seattle. Ooh, I don't know. Am I going to do this to Edgar? Seattle, Minnesota. I'm doing Seattle.
Whoa! Rematch from a few years ago.
Yeah, when we scored.
We need
in the
some.
final 15
Yep.
minutes.
We remember it well up here in the bold north. That's some painful memories.
Yeah, I mean, LA Galaxy are good. Now, they were missing people when we played in Leagues Cup, but we dominated them in Leagues Cup. It was 3-4-0, I think. But you were missing 2 of your best players for that game. So I don't know if that's a good sign of what the game would be. The game would, of course, be in LA. But if it's in Minnesota, it gives us a chance to travel to Miami for the championship.
Oh, he's got them in the championship and everything. I like it. But yeah, I've been saying Seattle in the Western Conference Finals for a while now. And I don't see anybody knocking off Galaxy until they get to the Western Conference Finals. I think it's going to be LAFC. It's going to be on the table for them to make it. Edgar, do you think we see El Tráfico?
A lot of people here want that. I mean,
Of course.
the diehard Galaxy fans are like, yeah, let's have another crack at them, and we can finally beat them, at their own, at BMO in the playoffs, because twice it hasn't happened. So a lot of people one of the reasons that a lot of people are really disappointed about not finishing at the top of the West is that, it's home field advantage.
Right.
And you coughed it up. And so now, instead of having to play them, at the dig, we're going to have to go to BMO in case that happens. So that's something that a lot of people are keeping an eye on. As far as Seattle versus Galaxy, my God, I just have some memories of like all those battles between these two teams. And I remember for the longest time, Seattle just seemed to be on the cusp of something big, and Galaxy was always in the way. And they finally like slayed the dragon, and then they went on to, write their own legacy. But yeah, I heard what you guys saying about the Loons. Ooh, like I was saying, you never know. Like they're quietly making a name for themselves in the playoffs. Don't sleep on the Loons, man. Don't sleep on the Loons.
So you're not betting on El Tráfico. You think somebody gets tripped up along the way?
I would like El Tráfico, but there's a lot of, like I said, LAFC has a rough road ahead of them, and if as Cameron said, Seattle has found the formula, then we might see Galaxy versus Seattle. But I would love to see another El Tráfico.
I think if MLS and Don Garber had their way, it would be El Tráfico on one side, Miami, Columbus on the other.
Yeah,
I think that would be
Totally.
the ideal Final Four. If they could go ahead and handpick it, I think that's what they would want.
how's Columbus doing, by the way?
Yeah, you know what? Fuck
My
Ohio.
goodness, what
All
happened
right.
last night?
Columbus and Cincy, both of them. All right, and then I just wanted to end it with this. I appreciate you guys coming on. Just one last thing that I wanted to touch on that Mr. Krabs brought up earlier. How are teams like Minnesota, Seattle, and Vancouver supposed to play in a new calendar? Now, this is a topic that's been circulating over the last couple of days. I want to just have some people on to talk about this, because I personally don't see it. I don't see how this benefits us in the States going up against the other sports, winter teams, winter sports. I mean, people just want us to be more like Europe. That's basically what I feel it ends up being. They want to be more like Europe.
Yep.
They want us to get rid of the playoffs and all that stuff. I don't think it should happen. I can't imagine that it's going to happen. But I digress. I kind of want to know what you guys think, just especially since you guys, not so much Edgar or myself, but Connor, Sam, and Cameron, you guys play in really cold weather places. Connor, I'll start with you in the frigid north of Minnesota. How are you feeling about this new calendar?
I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay.
I think that you're not only alienating a winter schedule up in, if you have a winter schedule up in Minnesota, you're not going to get a lot of people going out to games. So which means you're probably going to have to skip an entire winter or just play maybe a game or two in Minnesota when it's sub-zero. Yeah, just play a bunch of road games in the middle of the season, and that's not going to be fun for any of those North teams, let alone Minnesota, you've got New England, you've got Vancouver, you've got Seattle, you've got Montreal. Yep, right up in the right up in Canada there. Yep, Colorado.
Still in Portland, but
Colorado's mountain cold. But I think
I don't know what that means.
You're just going. I think you're alienating a bunch of fan bases there, because you're asking all these season ticket holders to go months without watching a game, and then you're watching a bunch in a row, which that is a whole nother story in itself. But I am 100% against it. I think MLS should stay in the summer, especially since they will only be up against the MLB most of the time. The MLB, that's pretty much it. And then if you put them in the winter, like as you say, it would be against football, it would be against basketball, it would be against hockey, and all of those are bigger markets.
And hockey isn't that popular necessarily across the entire country, but in the northern states, that's where hockey is the most popular. So you're going to have them going to watch the Canucks and the Whitecaps if they're playing right next to each other.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, we got the Kraken now in Seattle. Obviously, but then you have good teams in Atlanta too. So it does affect the South at the same time. But I think I would echo all those things. I mean, the only two reasons that they give that it would be a good thing to do is, one, it's very hot in the South. You don't know what it's like playing in 100% humidity. I'll address that in a second. And two, I think it does make a difference for the summer transfer window. Because right now, I hinted at it earlier, if you bring in a DP at the summer transfer window, 90% of the time, they're not going to make an impact on your team that year, because they're not going to have time to get because really it's not halfway through the season. It's 2/3 of the way through the season by the time they come in. And so they're going to get 6 games maybe before you go to the playoffs. And that's why you don't see them perform down the stretch unless they're super, super, superstars, right?
Or unless they come in and play in the Leagues Cup and win it.
Right. But that was also a little earlier in the season, I think, than you see with some of the DPs that come in, because the window's open until August 30th or whatever it is. But it'll make it cheaper to bring in those bigger players to the MLS, because they're not free transfers in the winter windows when they're trying to bring them in. So that is, I think, one of the real reasons they're pushing for it. Now, to me, you can take water breaks, you can schedule games later in the day, you can do all sorts of stuff to say, okay, it's hot out, we need to figure this out. If you are in the north and it's snowing, it's not safe to get to the game. You got, especially, I know Minnesota probably has it down, but places like Seattle, like it snows here in February. It doesn't snow here in December and in November at the times when they're saying they don't want to play. Like that means we're going to be playing snow games, and it's not going to be safe to get to those games. And so there's a safety factor there, and you can always put a million layers on and sit outside in the freezing cold. My friends from the Midwest do that all the time, but I just don't see how it works. Plus, I think Vancouver can speak to this for sure. There's nowhere else in the world that I'd want to be than Seattle during the summer, and so I'm sure Vancouver's the same. We're the same weather basically.
Weather's beautiful in that part of the country.
It's just so nice, perfect weather every day. It's 75 degrees with a cool breeze every day. I don't know what that is in Celsius. But Vancouver, I think they're it's only an hour and a half drive up there. They're pretty close to us, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Look,
it'd be a wonderful idea to have like a Canucks Whitecaps doubleheader, where like you watch a Whitecaps game in the afternoon, and then literally you just walk across the street to watch them. Or you could go to one of the many bars. I know there's like pubs within like 2 blocks of walking distance. And this a lot of people don't know this about BC Place. I've been there a couple of times now. I love it. It's like, it's so accessible from the subway. You get out of the subway and it's like literally like a block, maybe you walk. And there's 2 subways like next to it, adjacent. And then there's like all the bars and pubs are like right up the street. And there's a lot of them in that area. So you can make a whole day out of it. Like, yeah, let's go see the doubleheader, Canucks and the Caps, baby. And that would be great. But, I don't know. I think it'd be a wonderful idea to have like a Canucks Whitecaps doubleheader, where like you watch a Whitecaps game in the afternoon, and then literally you just walk across the street. There's a lot of them in that area. So you can make a whole day out of it. Like, yeah, let's go see the doubleheader, Canucks and the Caps, baby. And that would be great. But Just real quick, I'm going to touch upon what was Connor was saying about how cold it gets in Minnesota.
Yep.
I had a friend who played football for the Golden Gophers, and he said that it
Oh.
would get so cold that like it was dangerous to go outside and breathe the air. He says like your lungs will freeze if you literally. He says at one time it was like 40 below, and they had this one, and him and his some of his teammates were like in the dorms, and he said they had this one defensive back who was like the toughest mother effer he ever met. He's like this big, tall, corn-fed, farm kid, and he never said anything. Right? He was very quiet. And then they're like, hey Cody, can you go step outside and tell us if it's cold? So this big, Hodor looking guy. He's like, all right. And he gets up, he walks outside, opens the door, looks around, comes back in. He's like, yeah, it's cold. And so
Yeah,
they're like, yeah,
I mean,
it's dangerous, man. And even for us here in LA, a lot of people don't know this. It gets down to the 30s here at night, like in the middle of winter, like late December throughout January and even to early February. It gets really cold here at night. You're gonna ask a bunch of like LA Angelinos to go out and sit there in 30-degree weather for a night game? No, they'd rather be inside like Staples Center or the Intuit Dome or somewhere where it's nice and warm and
If
and
they
nice.
didn't have another option, maybe, but because there are other options going on at the same time with the new calendar, why would they do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes no sense.
We
We do
know,
double
yeah.
headers, baseball,
Yeah.
Mariners, and Sounders all the time.
yeah.
It also rains here a lot in January and in February. That's when we get most of our rain in LA and like, I remember like 2011. I went to a late February preseason match with the Galaxy, and it rained so hard. I mean, it was raining sideways, and it was like the wind chill was like 35 degrees, and the team felt so bad for fans because where I was sitting, the section actually flooded up to your middle of your calves. And I remember I was like, "This is horrible." We were sitting on top of the chairs. The fans, I mean, the team felt so bad that they gave all season ticket holders and people that showed up to that game a free ticket and an additional ticket to bring a friend for a game later in the season. But yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. So yeah, that's why I mean, maybe you don't think about it too much, Danny, because down there, you got the nice, warmer weather. But yeah,
Look,
it gets cold.
we get 50s in like late January, February. We get like 50s, maybe.
I don't even
Spoiled.
think it got to 50 degrees here today.
Yeah. So
So
I mean,
there's,
that's why people want to come to Miami to live and play.
yeah, I mean, there is one more thing about that too. When it is very dangerous for the players. A couple years ago, Allianz Field hosted the U.S. National team. They played against,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe, Honduras or
It was
Costa
Honduras,
Rica.
yeah.
It was Honduras, and I think it was -2 when the game was being played. I think it was the coldest game that the U.S. national team had ever played. I did not go to the game. I was too much of a sissy to go to the game, but I didn't. But I think I had friends that went to the game and they had beers freezing in their hands, and I think that 3 of the Honduran players had to be medically looked at because it was. I think they got diagnosed with a case of hypothermia when they were on the field.
Hypothermia, some frostbite.
Yeah.
I forget who the
Colorado
goalkeeper
had
was
that
for the
Sioux
U.S.
game.
in that game, but he said that it was horribly uncomfortable and that he got frostbite in his fingertips. He
Yeah.
said that no one. He goes, that the idea was to hinder Honduras, but the U.S. players were not comfortable in that environment.
No.
They did
But
not like it at all.
The thing is, like people, because I know what some people will say. Some people will say, "Oh, but they do it in football, right? Like the frozen tundra in Green Bay.
They have seat warmers.
They have seat warmers. They're out there for what? Like 4 seconds of play for one drive, then they go run back, and then they get on their seat warmers,
They get
put
those
on
big
the big
coats.
jackets. Like when you're playing football or soccer, you're running up and down for 45 to 50 minutes straight without stopping. Like it's completely different.
And the most you have is long sleeves on your
and
shirt
that's it.
too.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, Sam, we'll end it with you. Your thoughts on the weather calendar and all that other stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying, like, I echo everything that has been said so far. If you asked me what would I like to see, I'd like to see them continue with the scummer schedule. I'd like to see them reimagine Leagues Cup where it doesn't take up this prime summer window. Maybe it's spread throughout the season. Okay, However, I want to like paint a case for why, if they go to this winter calendar, it wouldn't be such a bad thing for Vancouver specifically.
Okay.
BC Place, you're playing in a dome. It's a retractable roof, so you've got that ability to control the weather. That's not an issue. The other thing, Cameron mentioned it, Pacific Northwest, middle of the summer, it's absolutely beautiful. That's both a give and take. In one sense, it's fantastic because the weather's great for matches. Vancouver, we have a bit of a reputation as like a fandom, a market. If it's too nice, people are out on the beach, they go for a hike, they go camping, they're doing other stuff. That is part of the challenge in the middle of the summer, is that people get busy doing other things, people go on trips, they're enjoying nature. So, like, part of the reason why, obviously, hockey is just very popular here, but part of the reason the Canucks are so successful is when it's, you know, the equivalent, like, 30 degrees and raining on a Tuesday night, there's nothing else to do other than to go to a hockey game. So, in a sense, I could see that being like a Wednesday night at 7:30 in the middle of the summer is a tough sell because people want to be out and about doing stuff. A Wednesday night at 7:30 in November when it's pouring rain, going into a stadium, watching some sports is actually kind of an attractive proposition. So there are a couple factors in Vancouver that maybe make it a bit of an outlier in terms of like your northern teams not liking this. Again, I don't think that's not an endorsement of this plan. It's obviously like more based on these motivations Apple TV has, and it feels like a lot of these decisions are being made not in terms of what's best for like the football product, but just like some weird marketing vehicle that they're trying to push forward. But I think if this went through, it wouldn't be the worst thing for the Vancouver market.
I mean, that's true. I mean, not for the Sounders because we play outdoors, but I'm the chief operating officer of a minor league basketball team that's like the league below the G League in the TBL, the Seattle Superhawks, and we play our playoffs are in June.
When are we getting the Sonics back?
NHL playoffs.
We're working on it.
This is a problem in Canada every year where it's going on too long now, and you're getting into like June, early July, even like, and it's like, who's watching hockey at this time of year? People are out doing stuff. It's light.
No one wants to be inside.
It's light until 10 o'clock at night. Like no one wants to be inside watching hockey at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is a challenge. Yeah.
That's very real.
By the way,
we don't get people out
I want to point out something. The Canadian Premier League, right? Canada had the opportunity to create their own league, right? Mm-hmm. Did they put it in the middle of winter? I mean, did they have that kind of a schedule? Like, hell no.
They had these stadiums are all outdoors with limited resources. You're talking 3,000 to 5,000 for a lot of the stadiums. So you're talking about like protecting the fans, having like heat and stuff like that. Especially you're in environments like Ottawa and Winnipeg, which are, like the extreme of extremes in the winter. So that was like an absolute no-brainer decision for that league.
Edgar and Dan are about to fight. The World Series is going back and forth right now.
Yeah, man. I'm so annoyed right now that they took the lead again. So I heard that that one of the things that they were considering, and not again, we can stop it here, but one of the things that they were considering was making a break in the middle of the season from like December to like the end of January. So let's bring it back right when the Super Bowl's kicking off. Like it's just so stupid in so many ways.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But again, we can have that conversation another day because I think that this conversation can keep going. But I do appreciate you guys jumping on, talking West Coast with us. I love hearing from you guys, learning a bunch of new things about the trash talking that Edgar was talking about with LAFC and just everything in general from mountain weather, which I still don't understand what Connor said mountain weather. I don't even know what that means.
It's just a different kind of cold.
Yeah, it's not. It's they're just higher
it's
up.
not the prairie's cold.
The weather. That's all.
I don't know cold, so I don't know. It's all the same to me. All right. So again, I appreciate you guys, and I'm just gonna bring you guys on the main screen just real quick. Just let everybody know where they could find you and listen to you guys moving forward. Make sure that you guys follow them all.
Yeah, my name is Edgar from News Across the Galaxy. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as Edgar Nags. And for News Across the Galaxy, it's nag_news.
I appreciate you, Edgar, as always, except for that jersey. I don't know what you wore there. Sam.
Yeah,
Oh,
the third
Wednesday.
sub.ca for any Whitecaps, Canadian Premier League content, anything Canada related, West Coast related, and yeah, the third sub, any of your social platforms. Thanks for having me on. These are always fun.
Yeah, man. And the chat always loves your cabin. They just assume that you're in a cabin, like outside, like there's twilight going on, and the chat
Someone
loves the
from
cabin.
Whistler.
Yeah. Connor, what's going on? Let everybody know where they can find you.
Hey, my name's Connor. I am a co-host of the Lunacy podcast. You can find us on Twitter at LunacyP. We cover all things Minnesota United and Minnesota craft beer.
Oh, okay.
And Dan,
like
I
that.
just want to say, we were down in Inter Miami a couple of years ago for one of our first away games that we went to. And Inter Miami fans are some of the kindest fans we've ever seen in our entire life. They were so welcoming. So, man, you guys showed us a good time when we were down there.
Thank you. We get a bad rep. I appreciate you putting that out there. You heard that, people that aren't from Miami? Like, we're nice down here. So I appreciate that, Connor. Next time, hopefully, if you come down again, who knows when you play? Because that's the thing that sucks about this huge league is that you might not come down for another 3 or 4 years. But,
right. Yeah.
Hey, man, any of you guys, reach out to us if you ever come down. And Cameron, again, thank you for jumping on. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Of course, Cameron Collins, Sounder Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm the communications director of the Independent Supporter Council, president of the Seattle Sounders Alliance Council, which is a fan government, and president of Girl FC, which is one of the supporter groups. You can get me at Legal Minded Punk on Twitter, all X, but all platforms. And Sounder Scuttlebutt is on X/Twitter at SSFC Scuttlebutt.
And I really, really hope that you guys get the Sonics back.
Oh, me too. Trust me. I produced a documentary with some of my friends called Sonicsgate that CNBC currently owns. If you haven't seen it, it's free on YouTube. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. You get the history of the Sonics, and then you get the why they were stolen.
The glove was one of my favorite players growing up. I used to love the glove. Gary
I was going to say, Detlef Schrempf was one of my favorite players growing up. I have a Detlef Schrempf jersey.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome. He's the GM of our minor league basketball team I work for is best friends with him, so I get to see him occasionally.
Nice.
There you go, Detlef. That's got to be the best name in NBA history, right? Detlef.
Oh yeah. He went to University of Washington too, so he's even though he's from Germany, he's local to us here.
There you go. And Fat Lever is probably the other great name. But I could go down a rabbit hole of NBA names. I think me and my friends do that just for fun sometimes. All right, and I'm Daniel Granada. I do a Battered Hair on the Inter Miami podcast, and then obviously the Battered MLS fans. Also, we go on once or twice a week. During the playoffs, it's going to be twice a week, talking Eastern and Western Conference playoffs. So make sure that you jump on with us and have fun with us. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, the guests, appreciate you guys all hanging out with us. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to talk.
Danny, thank you.
Yeah, glad to be on, man. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, and then again, and you guys are really accommodating. And Woo Wednesday, shout out to Chris. Chris is my co-host on the Battered Hair Hunt, and he is a Wu-Tang obsessed person. My wife made him some Wu-Tang sneakers. Like, he's just obsessed. It's
Everybody
sick.
should be Wu-Tang obsessed.
Yeah, but at some point
baby.
you have to like listen to something else. He's obsessed. He's obsessed. But I get
With
it.
all the
Wu
Wu
Wednesday.
cousins that are out there, I don't think you need to. You could literally listen 24 hours a day and still have more to listen to.
He will. If it's not Wu-Tang, it's Onyx. The guy is sick. But if you guys ever join us on the Battered Hair Hunt, or sometimes he hosts this show. He hosts the Eastern Conference show yesterday. So hopefully you guys get to meet him. He's I don't even know how to say he's an idiot. So anyway, all right. If you are listening on audio, we appreciate you listening all the way to the end. Please leave us 5 stars, comment, review, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. The new MLS show, 17 episodes in, we covered all MLS, and we have MLS podcast to join us, having some fun every week. And for those of you guys in the chat, as always, you guys are the best part of the show. Even Justin Blair, even though he's from Ohio, he called me out for saying all Ohio F them. Yeah, I stick with it, Justin. F you all. I hate Ohio. And until the next one, have a good one.